Alright, so this is the third recording. This should be the last one. So from right here, I'm going to go over it again because I'm not sure how much it cut off in the last one. But you're doing transformations, what we did in class. But in class, we always said g of x equals f of x, and then we told you what was the transformation that was happening. Well, right now, they want you to figure out what's happening and what's the difference. They went from a plus 6 to a plus 1. Alright, hold on, sorry. Alright, so the difference from 6 to 1 is that it went down 5. Down 5 would be the one that's in the middle. So you're telling me what happened. Now, if the number in front of the x would have changed, then it would have been either between one of these two. If the number would have been bigger in the front on g of x, then we would have said steeper. If the number in front of g of x would have been smaller than 1, because that's the number in front of here, then we would have said less steep. Okay. We would have said moved up if this would have been from 6 to 11, because 11 got bigger. Okay. Now we're looking at this. This one wants us to write and interpret what's going on. So we want to locate the y-intercept, which is 16. And 16 is where the water level started. Then we go on and we find another point. Another good point would be right here, which is 8. Oh, I can't write an 8. 8, comma 18, because it's going by 2. So I would do the slope formula, which would be 18 minus, oof, that's so far. The 1 and the 8 are so far away, and then it would be 8 minus 0. So I would get a 2 at the top and 8 at the bottom, which reduces to 1 over 4. So I would understand and explain, hey, the water level rises at 16, the slope is 1 over 4, which means that it's going up 1 foot every 4 days. Okay. So you just got to match up the y-intercept to and the slope to the right equation or the function and what it represents. Okay, so be careful that you understand what the problem is talking about. So it's talking about the level of water, how water rises on a certain number of days, like how fast it was rising. Now we go to this problem. It said, what is the rate of change? So the rate of change is always the slope, which is the value of the coefficient of x. But right here, I know that you see a 3, but that really cannot be the slope because I have it in parentheses. All the equations that we have slope outside. It's next to the variable x, but it's not inside the parentheses. So therefore we need to get rid of the parentheses, which we would do like we did on the first page of this review, which would be distribute. So I get negative 3x plus, oh, sorry, should be negative 3x minus 5. And then we bring down the equal sign and we bring it down y minus 10. Well, I can continue solving this problem, but my slope is only going to be this number right here in front of the x, just the negative 3. If I move the 10 over to the other side by adding, then I'm figuring out what the y-intercept is. But what I really wanted to know was the rate of change. Okay, now we're looking at this problem, and it said which function best represented by the graph. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at, hey, this graph right here is underneath f of x. It's lower, so this would be less steep. The smaller the slope, the less steep it is. And remember, steep is always the slope. It's the one that affects the slope, the one in front of the x. So when I'm looking at the answer choices, the only one that's affecting the slope would be the number in front of f of x, which was 1/3. Because if it was a 3, then it would be steeper. Now up here I told you in a word problem you could say reduce the charge per hour, which is your slope because of the word per, and then that would make it less steep. Now if it said anything about increasing the charge per hour, the slope, then you would call it steeper. So that's how you know in a word problem if it's going to be less steep or steeper. Okay, now we go to the last two problems, and this will only take about 5 minutes to do. So I'm sorry that you have 2 videos and then a third one to watch. But to graph this one's on point slope. So we take the opposite of this number and the opposite of this and make an ordered pair. Remember, this value goes first because that's my x. So it's 1, parentheses, negative 1. So I plot this point first. Then I use my slope. Hold on 1 minute. Okay, then we go up 1 and over 2. That's what the slope is saying. up 1 and over 2, up 1 and over 2, up 1 and over 2. So I exhausted all the way to the right, so now I go and do the opposite slope, which is down 1 and to the left 2, down 1 and to the left 2, down 1 and to the left 2, down 1 and to the left 2. Once I'm done, I connect my dots with a line, and I'm using my ID, so this should be better than mine. Alright, so for this kind of thing, you can just double check to make sure that, hey, they have the same ordered pair that they should be starting at, and just do one ordered pair, one slope, one rise over run, and see if that gives you the same dot. Now for this graph, we can do the cover-up method, which is that I ignore that this 3x is here, so I would get x equals 3. So I would plot on my x-axis right here. And then I would also do negative 3y equals 3. That means I'm ignoring the x. So that means I would divide by the negative 3. This says y is equal to negative 1. So I put a dot at negative 1. Alright, so I have a dot at negative 1 and a dot at 3 because this represents the y-intercept and this represents the x. Then I would connect the two dots. Now, I would also want to find the slope because I want to make sure that they did the slope correctly, because maybe they plotted one of these correctly, okay? Because for this kind of questions, either this one or the other one, you have to look at how it was graphed. You have to look, sometimes did they make a mistake? So sometimes they'll be asking you, can you match the graph to the correct equation to the correct graph? Or it might ask you, well, what are the mistakes that the person made? Okay, so the mistake could be that they plotted the y-intercept incorrectly. They plotted it on the x-axis. They could have plotted the x-intercept on the y-axis. That could have been what's wrong. Or then again, you could also be that they got the slope wrong. Now for this one, it's rise over run. So it went up 1 box and over 3. So my slope would be 1/3. So you have to look at all these different things and figure out, hey, did they do something wrong? Or are they asking me to match it? So this is what you need to do. Make sure you study and just make sure that you take your time on the test. Okay, do the best that you can.